What's up, everybody? Hoang here, and today I have for you a kind of different video. This video is basically a recap of my experience over with the owners of now UVS Games, and when we filmed out basically this hour-long discussion about their rebranding and a lot of questions that we had. On screen you see me, obviously my amazing face, and I'm joined by both the co-presidents of the company of UVS as well as true champion Steven. And I'm going to talk about how this all came to be, what it was like, and really just a lot of the questions that we got to ask. But first and foremost, this video, they invited us there, they hired us there, and Steven also briefly mentions this in his video, but they had no creative control over the questions that we asked whatsoever. They very much so invited us to ask whatever questions we felt were appropriate, and they gave some really great responses. And the questions that I personally wanted to really get out there was what made their company work internally, really focusing on transparency. As a card game player, one of the things that I value a lot is transparency with the company that I'm the game I'm playing for, right? If I'm playing, say, a Bandai game, or if I'm playing a Konami game, it's really nice to know the reasoning behind certain decisions and why they made that decision, right? Because it gives me a certain level of comfort as a player. It also helps me justify, think about what further decisions they may make in the future, and kind of use a sort of precedent to help determine that. But transparency is a really huge thing for me, and so a lot of the questions that I asked specifically focus in on that aspect in of itself. But that being said, this event was actually very unique, and I've never done anything like this before. This is my first time being on a set where it was extremely professional, camera crew, everything, props. It was literally like I was living out the Hollywood dream, right? It was really cool. It was really unique. I'm super grateful that I had that opportunity, and working with Steven again. Steven and I have been working together for a very long time now, here and there. From Digimon, right? It was started all the way back in, I think, 1.0 really, and sporadically here and there we've been working together. We commentated Worlds together, for example, and that was really fun. But they flew us out to, or they flew me out anyway, because Steven lives in LA, or Steven lives in California rather. But they flew me out to LA to record this video, and it was super fun. The questions that I asked along the lines, us focusing on transparency, I talked about why they made certain decisions onto their ban list, why they made certain decisions to produce such product, what kind of IPs they would like to make in the future. One of the questions that we talked about was what IPs do you all want to see? And I said League of Legends. I think it would be super cool if we got a League of Legends IP, and I think if we ever got one, it would probably break top 5 on the card game market, TBH, because it's League of Legends, right? But I think it's very interesting that this company has a lot of creative freedom when it comes to what IPs they can bring into the fray. Their approach is they don't want to just be a anime IP only sort of company, right? They want to expand their horizons into other categories as well. Previously they had a lot of fighting games, right? They had Street Fighter, they had Tekken, they had Soul Calibur, and this was something that their older audiences, or their veteran audiences, got a taste of. But these newer players that are coming in, they see MHA, they see these other anime IPs like Cowboy Bebop and Trigun Stampede that was just recently announced, and they're like, oh, okay, what about these older fighting game IPs that I really like? Well, they said, and in the future they do have some plans to revisit these, right? They want to have something for everyone, right? And I think it's a really great way to approach certain things, and I think having that creative liberty and creative freedom to go about that is really cool, and I'm excited to see what can come about that. And not only that, but because I only started talking with this company and playing their game not too long ago, within the last 3 months, I would say, very recent. And They were extremely helpful. They have a lot of customer loyalty programs set up in place. They have a lot of different ways that you can bring these cards to your local scene, right? I spoke with directly with one of their representatives that sets up locals in the southern region, right? And he helped set up my locals with the promo packs, with tournament kits, signed us up. Like, it was really great, and they're very transparent about, like, they'll really help any locals that get set up with this. We talk about it in the video as well, and there's a bit of a feedback loop where they want these LGSs to know that they can trust them, that they're here for the long haul. And I think that's really fantastic, right? A lot of card games, how it can feel at times is you put out this product and then you kind of just leave your LGSs on the wayside, and that's just a recipe for disaster, right? I think your local game stores is the key to success for any card game, right? Because ultimately that player base is going to make a majority of your player base at the end of the day, right? Like, all across the board, across all the states, nations, whatever you really want to say, your local game stores is the lifeblood of the card games. And so their mission is to create this relationship with all these various different card game stores and make it last for a very, very long time. They want to be here for the long haul. And I think that's a really fantastic approach to going about this, right? So they've made it clear in this video, and obviously you can watch the video if you want the more finer details, right? As it's being recorded in person. This is more so like a recap, if you will, but they go into detail talking about providing that support to these local game stores. And if one thing to know about these owners is that they're very, very present in their social media, right? If you at them on Twitter, if you at them on Facebook, if you just even make a comment about their game, they'll likely just answer it. They're very open people on social media, which is something I really like personally. I know we're like kind of jumping tangents a little bit here and there, but this video, me recording this is supposed to be like a very like real, honest sort of take, if you will. I want to make this as natural as possible, which I personally enjoy, frankly. But yeah, they're very open and honest on their social medias, which we jokingly say a lot, like, oh, I wish I could talk to like a Bandai dev, or oh, I wish I could talk directly to the people that design cards and stuff like that. Well, this is like your gateway, right? Like, this is one of the closest things that you can get to that. This is the thing, right? Being able to directly talk with the presidents of a card game company is super fascinating, and learning about like why certain things happen is really, really cool. And I think that this video accomplishes that very well. I've seen them, range not only from answering questions, very casually, but also I've seen them like, oh, you're interested in our game, but you don't have a deck, but you want to come to this event. Well, we can loan you a deck. Like, what card game company would go out of their way to do that? Like, that's kind of insane, right? And like, kudos to them. Like, that's how you bring in a player, because like once that player gets hooked, you're set, right? So personally, very, very, I'm a huge fan of the way they conduct things as a company. I actually am really, really big fan. But some of the questions that I talked about was how complicated this game could be getting into at times, right? When I was learning how to play this game, a few months back, it was a little bit complicated, right? It was not a very intuitive system, and the support manuals and everything that they had at the time were not very great, right? And that's more so a relic of the previous iteration of this company, right, when it was owned by different owners, which we do talk about in this video, right? There's an entire entire section talking about the previous issues that the older company had. They addressed that very face front, and I think that's really great, because what company is willing to acknowledge like their previous misdoings and then go back and correct those? So I brought up the question, like, okay, this game is a little unintuitive, it's a little complicated at times. And they're like, yeah, we completely understand that, so we're releasing brand new player resources, like a new manual, a new website, so that makes information so much easier to find. They've redesigned the card information, the card design in of itself, to make it much more appealing to new players. We also talked about like how implementing custom art works. So like talking with the original creator themselves and like going in that feedback loop, I think is very, very fascinating. So, ultimately this experience, I loved it. I loved having this conversation with just everyone. It was a very free-form conversation. They wanted it to be natural, be genuine. They didn't want anything rehearsed, anything scripted. it was very much so like on the spot, like just go with the flow. And I wish more card game companies did this kind of content. I wish more card game companies gave players like Steven and I, or just really anyone, like the opportunity to make their voice heard. A lot of people feel like they're ignored, and UVS, one of the biggest things that they do is they actively say that they hear the players, that they're going through all of these comments, that they're gathering all this feedback, and that's how they formulate some of their decisions. When they redesigned the card frame design, there's an entire article detailing what the entire process was like. Like the detailing, like the feedback, the expectations of the players, like what they were aiming for. What company? I go back to this a lot, but what company does that? That's super impressive, And I don't know. I know it sounds like I'm singing the praises a lot of this company. I know this is not like a paid commercial or paid advertisement or anything, but I genuinely do mean it. That this company was amazing to work with, and I really love what their vision is and what they have set to do for the players. They want to make a game and an environment where anyone can hop in and they would have a little piece of something for them to enjoy, and they're there to make sure that everyone has a good time. And I don't know if I can ask it for anything else from a card game company. That sounds amazing. And as long as they're putting out the logic to go along with it, the logic that supports all of these decisions, then as far as I'm concerned, like, go for it. Shoot for it. I support this. So if you are interested in playing a game owned by a company like this, if you're interested in like these various anime IPs, fighting game IPs, whatever it may be, right now it's My Hero, Cowboy Bebop, and Trigun Stampede, but who is to say we won't get some really cool IPs in the future? Maybe we'll get Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, League of Legends, really, right? So just stay tuned. I think this right now is the ground level, and I think getting your foot in the door is going to pay off in the long run, personally. So thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, peace out.